a big transformation has been happening in Brandwatch, and that transformation has been driven by someone called Pat Phelan, and that is about professionalizing and scaling up our customer success organization. Because as we've grown as a business, and I take you back to Giles's opening remarks, as we become a more mature organization, and we recognize now, and it's terrifying and beautiful, that actually our products and services are mission critical often. So we have to deliver on that promise to you, and we've been scaling up our customer success organization, and lots of them, like a kind of phalanx at the back of the room in black t-shirts, are here. Pat has got a fantastic panel here of 3 people who are going to be talking about discovering ROI in social. So I will allow Pat to introduce the guys, or the guys can introduce themselves, but can we give them a big round of applause to get them up on stage? Guys, come to the front.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Are we good? I feel like I'm graduating. Will I get one opportunity to speak on stage at Now You Know, and you put me after a magician? I swear you did do this kind of thing deliberately. Good morning, everybody. It's a real privilege and pleasure to be here. As Will said, my name is Pat Phelan. I have the incredible honor of leading the customer success global function here at Brandwatch. You've had your 4 English speakers beforehand. I'm increasing the diversity level at Brandwatch a little bit. As you can tell from my accent, you may be able to tell from my accent, I'm Irish. And it's not the same thing, just to be very, very clear. No political statement here, but just if you do think that's the case, the door is there, please. We've been, as Will said, going through quite a transformation over the last 8 to 10 months, and really my job is to make sure that you guys keep coming back here year after year after year, because the relationship with Brandwatch is exactly as you expected from the very beginning and continues apace. So this is a topic that is very close to my heart. ROI, value, however you want to frame it, is, I think, a conversation that most of us have probably had in this room at some point, or if we haven't had it already, we'll probably have at some point in the future. I'm absolutely honored to be on stage with some social intelligence luminaries, if that's the correct word, from some of the US's most iconic brands, global in many cases. And really the purpose of today is just to get a sense of what goes through their minds when we talk about this topic, both in the current organizations that they work in, what the market states, where it's going to go in the future. And really I want this to be as interactive as possible, both from a panel perspective, so please chip in, question, argue if needs be, and from an audience perspective. So I'll be throwing some questions out as we go through this process. So first things first, guys, if you wouldn't mind just briefly introducing yourselves and giving the audience a taste of what you currently do. John?
Hi, my name is John Trenholm. I lead the consumer insights team at Toys R Us. Part of our responsibility is social, but it's a full service insights group, so everything from product testing to ad testing to customer experience measurement. But social's a big piece of what we do and how it influences all the other work, all the other insights we capture.
And I'm Tracy Bowen with Bank of America. I manage the media monitoring and analytics team. For us, that includes both social and traditional media. And our approach is we buy data one time, we enrich it, we perfect it, and then we turn it back around and pipe it out to all of our lines of business.
Thank you.
Okay. And I am Angela Berger. I am on the Insights and Analytics team at Walmart, which is headquartered in Bentonville, Arkansas. And within Walmart, it's in the corporate affairs team. And if you think about the size and scale of Walmart, the corporate affairs team is about 300 people. And so the very small Insights and Analytics team that I'm on is essentially working with other parts of the business and parts of the organization to help them figure out how do we use data to make better decisions and measure the impact that we have on our brand.
Super, thank you. Angela, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to ask this question to each one of you just to get the ball rolling, because I think it's probably something that's on top of most people's minds. When we talk about value and when we talk about ROI or whatever the term might be as it relates to social intelligence, how do you frame it in your organization? What do you think about, and what have been the biggest changes that you've seen to that over the last couple of years?
Sure, yeah. So when I think about, social ROI, I really think about, what is the value and what are the benefits that we're providing to our customers, to key stakeholders, to key communities, and also what is the value that's coming back into Walmart from listening to those different groups and social media. And so I like to think about it through two different lenses, from both a quantitative lens and a qualitative lens. So some of the qualitative things might be like, are we developing new relationships? Are we changing people's minds about how they see Walmart? You think about Walmart has been around for a very long time and is very, I'd say, challenging to change how people feel about Walmart. And so a lot of what we do have to look at is more qualitative, and I think people are okay with that and understand that. But then there's also the quantitative side of things, which I think we do have to be careful about just throwing out metrics around everything, especially a lot of those vanity metrics. But from a quantitative perspective, a lot of times what we have the ability to do is to look back to sales. So if we're doing, for example, product campaigns, and we're able to look at the sales data, and I think that's really the holy grail, is figuring out how are we impacting the bottom line. But I think it's overall just looking at a qualitative and a quantitative perspective. How are we communicating the benefits to the brand, to our customers, and how can we get everyone aligned around those common, metrics?
Okay. And Tracy, same question to you.
Well, ROI is such a simple equation mathematically, but in social data, nothing is simple. I mean, we're dealing with data that has very human attributes. So our approach to ROI is looking at the processes that social data and social activities are a part of. What are they driving? How are they getting to those business outcomes? So if you take, for instance, and what's the difference if they were there or they weren't there? So, look at any marketing campaign, promotional activity. Look at your data during that time period and take out that promotion. What was the impact to your brand? What would your brand have been if that didn't happen? You might have had a perfect campaign, not a single negative mention, but did it move the dial on your brand? And so we're really looking at the impact at the macro level. And it doesn't just apply to marketing. So, for instance, risk management. In the case of risk management, speed of discovery is everything. Yeah. Speed of discovery leads to speed of resolution. And that minimizes the impact to your customers as well as your brand. Sometimes that's hours, sometimes that's days. So you literally just look at how quick did social identify it versus the traditional sources. And that difference has real value. Sometimes minutes make a difference in the world of social data.
And I'll just stay with you for one moment, because we had a conversation earlier on in terms of how that's changed, how the perception of value or ROI has changed over the last number of years. And you've had, a significant career in this area. You've seen a lot. How have you seen that evolved since you started out on this?
And I had the benefit of a very long runway because we implemented our program. I wouldn't say implemented. We were discovering our programs around 2007. We went live in 2008. At that time, there wasn't a lot of social data, and the audience was small. We could afford to experiment, make mistakes. We spent a lot of time trying to explain to people why this was going to be really important one day, and it gave us that opportunity to explore what worked in terms of measuring and pulling this the social data concepts and our metrics into our corporate objectives.
Okay, thank you. And John, the same original question for you.
Yeah, so for me, we kind of think about it in hard ROI and soft ROI. So at the end of the day, I do have to go to my CFO, and he says, why did you spend this money, and how much money did you make the company? So I have to give him numbers, and I have to be able to say, we made this decision, and this decision was X better, or we made these changes to the campaign based on what we knew, or we sped up this process, or sped up this decision, and attribute money to it so that we can show that we're efficient with the money. Whether budgets are shrinking or people are just getting smarter with their budgets, I'm held to the same standard as everybody else in the business. On the softer side of it, it's another way to connect folks to the consumer. So we can't have everybody in the building out in homes, in stores, hanging out with consumers every day, but social's a way to let them do that, let them experience the consumer firsthand. So it may be hard to attach an ROI or a value to getting somebody to listen to a consumer, just hear the words they're using, or experience what they're going through in their baby or toy shopping. But that over time builds comfort and familiarity with the customer and helps them make better decisions. So that's the softer side that I don't know how to put a number around yet.
Yeah, which is presumably pretty common in that regard. Angela, when you think about the next sort of 3-4 years, and again, this is obviously a bit of ESP at play here. We might need to get Bill on stage again to help us out with this one. Where do you see the focus on measurement and value in the area of social intelligence? Or do you see it remaining relatively consistent in the context of it being sort of qualitative and quantitative specifically?
Yeah, I think it'll continue to change. I think, there's a lot of advancements with machine intelligence and AI that are making all of us as communicators and marketers much more efficient and effective in what we're doing. And I think we're going to be able to continuously leverage those types of technologies to understand the impact that we're making. One thing I think is really interesting is just this explosion of video and imagery. And traditionally, when you're using softwares and tools, you're able to look for keywords and figure out how are people talking about my brand. But now it's how are people showing my brand through video, through image, and how do you start to quantify that and show the value in that and how that plays into the larger decision-making process and the experience that customers go through with your brand. So I'm really curious to see what happens in regards like image recognition and video, and how do you track all of that in real time and work with that.
And John, earlier on, we had a conversation around the potential, the opportunities, and you spoke a little bit about that visual kind of image aspect. Could you elaborate a little bit on that, about where you see the opportunities in those areas?
I mean, as we talk to consumers and we see consumers, they're just more comfortable communicating through videos and images and pictures. I mean, think about the explosion of emojis. Like, how do we take a string of emojis and turn it into words that we can start to quantify? That's harder, but there's so much untapped data out there in the social space, whether it's videos, images, pictures, emojis, that type of piece, that once we figure out how to turn that into data that we can manipulate and start to measure, I think that we're going to see an exponential increase in the ROI of these data sets.
Especially things like Snapchat is kind of just like a black box right now. We have no idea what exists there. And I think it'll be really interesting to see what these different platforms start to give us access to and how that evolves.
Okay. And Tracy, just in terms of, again, the future of measurement in your world, where do you see it?
I think we in this room have a huge opportunity there. I would love to see some consistency in how we define ROI as an industry. Not necessarily that we all do it the same, but we develop some common terms, some common industry standards. Think about how many times your C-suite has gotten reports that were some internally generated, some from your agencies, and some from industry experts. All good information, but on the surface they appear to conflict. No wonder ROI for social is questioned. And I think those of us in the room have the opportunity to take that off the table.
That leads very nicely to my next question. So you sort of put yourself on the spot a little bit here. So if you were in a sort of a crystal ball scenario, and you had the opportunity to, look at a couple of areas, let's say, when you talk about that consistency, that sort of common language, what would you put in there?
Well, I think we need to step back and look at, impact to brand, impact to processes, impact to business. I think we've all talked about how these things drive the big picture. And so I don't think the measurements will all be the same because we're in different businesses. But think about the power of this. What if ROI, some components, some facets of ROI became metadata in your tool? Food for thought. So there's there's certainly, we don't want cookie cutters, but I think we can come together in terms like, what is the impact to brand on sentiment, on visibility? What was the impact to brand consideration? Where do we lower cost? How quick did what was the speed to insight that allowed us to make an issue go away before you got the call from media? How can you put a price on that? But it has real value.
Okay, that's really useful. John, if you think just generally about sort of ROI value strategies or approaching that concept in a more systematic way, what would be the core components that you would, let's say, advise the guys in the room or that you've experienced or even maybe made mistakes on in the past that you would do again?
Yeah, I think there's, and I had a couple conversations last night, so it's pretty top of mind, as an input into a model.
Yeah.
I think that we can use social as more of a predictive tool to see where things are headed, because you can see a couple people or a small group of people talking about a topic before it's big, before it happens. And if you can use that to see where things are going, or at least narrow down the path where you could end up, so you can minimize the number of bets you have to make. But I think we have an advanced analytics team that is doing more with our social data and seeing how we use that to see where everybody's headed.
Okay. Okay. Anja, what about you in that situation?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you were saying, and something that we've found at Walmart is that all of the social data can't just live on an insights and analytics team. We have to empower the other parts of the organization, whether it's a PR team, the crisis communications team. We have to empower them and give them the data, because it can't always be a funnel through us like, hey, what's happening with this? We actually have had a lot of success in handing over the softwares and tools to them, training them on it, and then helping them make that part of their day-to-day process, because they're the ones that are going to have to act on it very quickly from a marketing, communication standpoint. So I think empowering the rest of your organization and kind of democratizing the access to data is kind of where the future is going, and everyone's going to have to use it in their role somehow moving forward.
Okay, and that's, again, that is a very sort of top of mind conversation, definitely that we have a lot of the time. I mean, Tracy, how have you found that concept to be successful? So the situation where you've got an operation that allows this information to get outside of your team in a consistent, impactful way. What was the genesis of that, or was there one particular point in time that you could pinpoint?
It definitely was an evolution, and it started with the fact that there was information from a lot of sources, but when we're looking at solving a problem, driving a business outcome, how dangerous is it for multiple parties going towards that goal, making decisions on different pieces of information? Yeah. So it is a matter of getting information out in a consistent, usable, credible way, and that happens over time. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of work, both in educating your organization. When you first start, and in every corporation is different where they are in their life cycle, but when it's first introduced into your business models, you have skeptics, you have people that don't understand. People think it's for someone else. Oh, no, that's not my department. No, yeah, it touches everyone. So it does take time and a lot of hard work, in all honesty.
Okay, I'm going to throw it out to the audience after the next question, but it's one that sort of, certainly I spend a lot of time thinking about on a day-to-day basis. Where does social ROI, social intelligence ROI, live in the C-suite? In your experience, is it sort of, scratching the door outside? Is it just hovering around the edge, or is it really at the table? And the second part of that is how do you see that improving over time, I guess? John, let's kick that one off with you.
For us, it's important. I mean, we spend money on it, so we have to measure it.
Yep.
And there's questions about what are we getting out of this, and not even just the money. We put quite a few people behind it, so it's a resource issue. For me, who's got to measure it? If my team or the marketing team isn't measuring it, it pretty much means finance is measuring it. And all due respect to any finance people out there, that's not a good idea. It's just, they don't understand it. It's just going to get treated like another number. It's not just another number, and it's more complicated. So I do think it's up to us, as the subject matter experts, to not own, but drive the conversation about the ROI. We need their input and their partnership so they believe the numbers, but we have to frame it up.
And in the context of what you just outlined earlier on, that it's linked to something, it's part of a wider strategy, I guess, is more impactful as well. Tracy, what's your experience with that?
Again, I think we're very fortunate in that we have the top of our house not just understands this information, they ask for it.
Yeah.
And even better, they can explain it.
Yeah.
Can talk about what happened with either a campaign, an event, our overall brand, and it's something they seek out and look for.
Right.
So we no longer have to sell the value or try to sell the importance of it. It's something that is now sought out. But again, long runway to get there.
Yeah, okay. And to finish up this question, Angela, what about you? What's your experience?
Yeah, so I would say that social ROI is very important to our C-suite. I think just in terms of how important the customer is to Walmart, we have over, I think it's like 100 million people coming through our stores every week. And everything that we're doing as a business is driven from the customer. So everything that all of these campaigns that we're running, all the communications that we're doing, every interaction with our customers is really important and really plays into their experience.
Yep.
And so the people that are at the high level that are making different business decisions, all of that is driven by customers in some way, whether it's something they express on social media that they like, that they don't like, whether it's a survey, whether it's feedback in the store. And so I think that there's a consensus that what we're seeing on social media and what we're doing, the impact that it's making is very important in terms of our business strategy and what we're doing for our customers.
Okay, super. So let's pass it out to the audience. I think there's a couple of people wandering around the edges with microphones, if I'm not mistaken. You've got one, good. That's lucky. So does anyone have any questions for the panel with regard to anything we've just spoken about?
I have a very simple question. For me, the ROI is measured in, the metric is a monetary value. When you report on ROI, do you report on the monetary value?
Who wants to pick that one up?
What do you mean by monitor value?
Dollars.
Monetary, I think is monetary value. Yeah, the actual financial impact.
I'll say yes, for us, yes, we put dollars and cents next to it. I spend X number of dollars on social listing platform, and I have to justify how I made the company more money than that. So is it perfect and bulletproof and the most accurate thing in the world? No, but it's probably as accurate as any other number somebody else in the company made up. So I feel pretty good about it, but yes. I mean, and when I go to the CFO and present my budget and say I want this much money, they ask me what you do with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to assign dollar values.
And another thought and that is a very common question, one that we all have to answer all the time. Where's the hard dollars?
Yeah.
Where's the revenue? Where's the sales? And I know it's different for every company, but when you think about the process to complete a sale from first awareness to the actual transaction, it depends. I think it's easier depending on where social is in that funnel and what part it plays in it. So for us, we don't transact in social, so it's hard to put hard dollars from that standpoint. Yeah. But we can measure how much more efficient social made the processes, and that's how we get to dollars and cents. Sales so much harder.
Yeah.
I would not want to have to do that.
No, and some of the value is we developed some processes people were doing manually, and we were able to automate it, and we were able to say, it was taking this person 3 days, 8 hours a day, and now it takes somebody 35 seconds to log in and look at a screen. I just saved, 3 days per week, 52 weeks a year, and that's X number of dollars I produced.
Okay. Anybody else? Let me go in the middle, JD.
Hey guys, this question is more for John because you're on the consumer insights team and social is a part of what you do. What challenges have you faced in shaping the insight story with traditional measurement data sets? So coming from a consumer background, there's all these advertising testing processes, there's brand health studies, there's qualitative and quantitative research that's decades old. How do you pair that insight with what you learn from social listening and social data?
It's definitely a challenge. I mean, everybody's used to looking at a survey or looking at a focus group discussion guide. But the reality is that the social data in many ways is the same when you get into the nuts and bolts of it. And you mentioned brand equity trackers. I mean, I know there's several people out here who are using social to do brand health tracking or brand equity tracking. And you can do it cheaper and faster and more robustly, arguably. So there's a lot of ways, a lot of questions that we use traditional methods built in the 80s, 70s, and 90s, and we can do them with social data we're seeing today, and you can do it faster and cheaper. So usually when I tell people you can do things faster and cheaper, like that kind of wins them over.
So you have seen the traditional methods decline in terms of number, or are they just supplemented?
We're making a dent.
I see.
It's not. There's still a lot of surveying, a lot of focus groups. You know, you also see the virtual and the neuroscience is picking up to kind of complement that. So there's a whole new suite of techniques out there. But yeah, I see more and more opportunity for social to jump in and answer questions that maybe didn't before.
That's great.
Great. Any other questions? We've got a couple over here. Oh, yeah.
Awesome. This is also directed towards John. I was wondering, with the live streaming of April the Giraffe for Toys R Us, that was something our company focused on, not only being in the right place at the right time, but it was also extremely authentic to the online social community. Do you have a couple of facts on hand, either qualitative or quantitative, of how that impacted Toys R Us's ROI?
So that's one. So for all of you who don't know, April the Giraffe, I hope you all know April the Giraffe. Toys R Us had some branding with it. Then when she gave birth, we switched and put the Babies R Us logo up. It was very well received. I mean, there's always that nervousness to, you know, how are people going to, you know, react to it, but it was really well received. A lot of eyeballs on it. Commentary was positive, but we have not gone through the exercise of tying that. But you know, kudos to our PR team. I mean, they drove that, went and built that relationship, and it turned out really well.
Cool. I think we got time for maybe one more question. So,
hi, I just had a question. You were talking about doing the ROI back. And are you tying that to sales? Or is it online sales? Or how are you tying back like the numbers that you're getting behind it?
I mean, at Walmart, in many cases, we have access to all of our, in-store and online transactions. So when we're doing different promotions, whether it's back to school or Black Friday or whatever it is, we're actually able to run different tests and look at the correlations and see if that is impacting sales data. So we have that actual data that we can work with. And I think we're very lucky in that, because a lot of brands don't have that direct, can see that direct impact. So I would say sales day. We also look a lot at reputation numbers. So we're doing constant polling of our reputation. So we have this constant stream of baselines and benchmarks that we set around how do people feel about our brand on, every single day. And then we can align the social things that we're doing from a social media perspective, see is that having an impact on how people perceive our brands, on brand favorability.
okay, super. Thank you, guys. We've got a couple of minutes left, so I wanna finish up with an opportunity for you guys to bestow some sage, valuable advice, or maybe a teaser to a further conversation later on. Tracy, we'll start with you. If there was one piece of advice that you would give the audience in terms of the concept of social ROI within an organization, what would that be?
Well, I think sometimes we look at social data and say, where's the ROI in there? Well, it's not. And that's the challenge. It's really stepping back, forget what you're doing in social. Start with your enterprise mandates, your corporate imperatives, and work backwards to see how does your social data, your social activities support those. And if you're having trouble finding a link, that tells us something too. We're either looking at the wrong data, the wrong perspective within the data. You can redo your data models. Or maybe it's the way we're leveraging social to support those. So if you work backwards, you either find the connection or you build one.
Super. John?
I'd just say, in the grand scheme of things, social is relatively new. I think we're talking about celebrating 10 years with Brandwatch.
Yeah.
So just try stuff. Just be willing to go out there and play around with the data and try a new approach, because we just don't know what doesn't work yet. There's so many untried experiments with social data, and I think that's just, we have to get out there and then, in forums like this, just share your experiences with each other, and hopefully together we'll be able to build bigger, faster, smarter tools out of this.
I think that's a really good advice. Does Brandwatch have a forum where people can share new ideas and so forth on ROI?
Yeah, that is definitely sort of the way most of this
Got a
kind of
blog,
information is shared. Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, I think both those points are incredibly valuable. It feels like being tied to something that's much bigger and just like a customer journey, right? In terms of top of the funnel right through the conversion, it's similar in this area. But that concept of what worked and what didn't work is just as important, really.
Absolutely.
I'm right there with John. I think that, you have to allow yourself to be creative with how you're looking at the data, how you're presenting it. I think, a lot of times we're kind of pressured to get some magic algorithm that'll work and you can use it and that's it. But the platforms are constantly going to change. There's constantly going to be new things. There's going to be new data privacy things that you're going to have to deal with. So I would just say, be creative, allow yourself to be flexible, and make sure that you're setting those expectations for the people that you're delivering these results to.
Yeah. And I think in the context of the presentation that actually came before here about just the concept of customer experience and that fact that really customers are in control, the metrics around that and how you value that is going to change significantly as well, I guess. Guys, that's all we have time for. That's been incredibly, incredibly valuable, and thank you all so much for your time and your preparation, which I know there was a lot of. It's a big, big topic, so to everybody in the audience, where there's an opportunity to have a conversation with these guys, please take advantage of it. I think you're around both days, and obviously there's a customer success area outside, being totally biased. Please drop by, say hello, see what we're up to. Thank you all very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks, guys.